Welcome back to the Ancestral Findings podcast. When you think about the past, it's easy to imagine it as black and white, as something distant, fixed, and finished. But what if I told you there's a record out there that feels more like a color photograph? A record where the names aren't just names, they're people you might have known, streets you've driven down, even echoes of your own childhood. Today we're stepping into the year 1950. The war was over, the world was shifting, and a census taker, probably in a suit and tie, knocked on your family's door, not to guess the future, but to quietly capture a moment in time. The 1950 U.S. Census is the most recent one available to the public. It marks the end of one chapter in American history and the start of another. Taken just 5 years after World War II ended, it captures a nation in transition, from wartime sacrifice to peacetime prosperity. This was the era of growing suburbs, sidewalks filled with baby carriages, and the soft glow of new television sets flickering in living rooms. If the 1940 census showed a country on the brink, the 1950 census shows what happened after the leap. For family historians, this one's a cornerstone. It may include your parents, your grandparents, or someone you knew personally. That makes it more than a record. It's a snapshot of real lives in neighborhoods that may still feel familiar. Back in April of 1950, when enumerators began knocking on doors, the U.S. population had passed 150 million. The country had emerged from the war as a global superpower, and things at home were changing fast. The GI Bill helped thousands of veterans go to college and buy homes. Entire communities were springing up to house young families. The economy was booming, and a new American identity was taking shape, optimistic, mobile, and increasingly suburban. Even though the Cold War was beginning to cast its shadow, everyday life was focused on starting fresh. Men returned from the war and picked up civilian jobs. Women, many of whom had worked during the war, were either adjusting to life at home or continuing in new office and service roles. So what did the 1950 census actually ask? Well, it started with the basics: name, age, race, sex, marital status, and relationship to the head of household. Then it went deeper, asking where each person was born, whether they lived in the same house or the same county a year ago, and whether they were working, looking for work, or attending school. It asked about occupation, industry, and hours worked the previous week. And for those 14 and older, it included a question about military service, whether they served in World War I, World War II, or elsewhere. Women in a selected sample were asked how many children they had ever born, and about 20% of all respondents were given additional questions, things like income, job history, and prior residences. These extra questions give us a more detailed look at some families, almost like a magnifying glass on everyday life. Enumerators were even told to follow up on absent household members, college students, people in institutions, servicemen, making this census more complete than many before it. Now, researching the 1950 census takes a slightly different approach than earlier ones. Because of the sampling system, not everyone was asked every question. That means some people will have just the basics listed, while others will have a goldmine of extra details. One of the most useful questions is this: did you live in the same house a year ago? That one can help you track a family's movement between 1949 and 1950. Were they relocating for work, rebuilding after wartime losses, looking for opportunity? This one question can start to answer all of that. You can even begin to trace their journey over a 15-year span from 1935 to 1940 to 1950, especially when you pair this census with city directories, school records, and draft cards from World War II or Korea. Another great detail to look for is job titles. This is the census where white-collar jobs really begin to take center stage. You'll start seeing listings like office manager, claims adjuster, or data processor, roles that barely existed in 1930. If you track a person across a few censuses, you may see someone go from being a laborer to working in an office and owning a home. That tells a powerful story of economic mobility. The question about hours worked also matters. It helps show who worked full-time, who was part-time, and gives you some insight into family dynamics, who supported the household and how. If your ancestor served in the military, this census is one more chance to connect that service to their civilian life. Were they back home? Were they starting a family? Going to school? This is the kind of context that helps you build a rich, complete biography. Now let's talk about family structures. The post-war years brought major shifts. Young families were moving out sooner, setting up homes of their own. So you'll often see smaller households than you might find in the 1930 or 1940 census. But at the same time, you'll also see aging parents moving in with adult children, especially if they were widowed or facing tough times. So pay close attention to who's in the house. A different last name might be a married daughter. Someone at the bottom of the page could be a boarder, a roomer, or an extended relative. And if someone's missing who should be there, don't assume they're gone. Check for them in military schedules, college dorms, hospitals, or even prisons. These gaps are often clues in disguise. There's also a lot of cultural context hidden in these records. The census doesn't ask about race relations or the Cold War directly, but those stories are there. Housing patterns show segregation and redlining. Entire neighborhoods were divided by race, and that's something you can track if a family moved often or didn't move at all. And while there's no checkbox for technology, this was the dawn of the TV era. Refrigerators, telephones, radios, households were changing. That shift shows up in the kinds of jobs people had: media, electronics, communications. You'll even see the early signs of the civil rights movement and the cultural change coming in the 1960s. More African American families were living in northern cities. More women were listed as professionals. And more young people were staying in school longer. So why does the 1950 census deserve special attention? Because it's our clearest bridge between the past and the present. It's the closest we can get, for now, to the world we remember or heard about firsthand. And it connects us to people we may have actually known. That makes it incredibly personal. This census lets you build precise timelines. You can link it with marriage records, GI Bill applications, birth certificates, even newspaper clippings. It helps you turn a collection of facts into a full, vivid story. So when you dig into the 1950 census, don't just scan for names and ages. Look for movement. Look at the kinds of work people did, the hours they put in, how the households were arranged. Pay attention to what's there and what's missing. Compare it with past records to find patterns. Line it up with later documents to see the change. Because this isn't just a list. It's a mirror. And in that reflection, you'll find more than ancestors. You might just find a little of yourself. If you've got a hard-to-find ancestor you're stuck on, I'd love to hear about it. Just head over to ancestralfindings.com and click on Contact to send me a message. While you're there, take advantage of our free weekly genealogy lookups. Explore thousands of articles and enjoy hundreds of podcast episodes. We've been helping family history researchers since 1995. And if you're looking for even more, check out our Genealogy Gold Q&A series over on Patreon. Thanks for listening, and as always, happy searching.